3, 2. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Shared Screen's New Rollers, a series where we are learning to play D&D for the very first time. Our first episode was us making our characters on a live stream, and today we have a very special guest, one Sir Mr. Corey Frate. How are you, Corey?
You know, I'm doing just dandy. I'm delighted to be here and to talk about something that really, I mean, otherwise, if I wasn't booked for it tonight, I would be just kind of probably out on the street, harassing strangers, saying about, hey, you want to learn about tabletop games? So
I feel like that's what this project really is I messaged a bunch of people and was like, hey, want to come nerd out about something with people that are excited for like an hour and a half? Like, it's great.
And that's the beauty of the game, honestly. It's nerding out for, several hours at a time.
And the responses so far have been great because, like, I know if someone came up to me and was like, I want to learn about Pokemon, can you teach me? I'll be like, sit the fuck down. Like, I've trained for this my entire life. Like, finally.
You're getting the intro course, the final course. You're going to get a whole 4-year degree if you sit with me for 4 hours.
And today we do basically have D&D 101 because you are sharing a beginner's guide presentation. I'm assuming you wrote this yourself.
I horribly plagiarized it, and I've killed everyone else who's involved, so I can claim credit. This was something that I just decided to on a whim one day because it happened that I was explaining D&D to so many of my friends who had never played before. I was like, you know what I could do? I could make this more efficient. I could standardize this. Once I got past that capitalist brain rot, I was like, no, let me put together a presentation that can help, some new beginners, help people get a kind of a feel for the game. I have one friend who works for the Comic-Cons, and so it was a particular interest to her to get an understanding of, one of these, facets of the community of our great big nerdy family, all these different genres and all these different realms and worlds, and so. I had the wisdom to foresee it would be useful when I would be called upon to share my knowledge with the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in a little bit with, yes, this is New Rollers on a new project, so I'm gonna give a little bit of housekeeping and background to Corey and everybody listening. So if you watch Your Screens, we did a podcast a few months ago where Alec talked about the D&D campaign he's currently playing, which is his first one, and it fully became a hyperfixation for my ADHD. Since that has happened, I have watched all of Legends of Vox Machina on Amazon. I'm on episode... Same. Great show. Highly recommend that show to everybody.
Campaign.
Yeah, the campaign, I watched 30 episodes, and it was really, really hard for me to follow, especially because I started when Orion was still there, and then I didn't understand the drama from 6 years ago, so I didn't know why he just, vanished one day. And now I've watched all of the first season of Fantasy High from Dimension 20. I'm watching Crown of Candy with Dimension 20 right now. I've gotten very into watching and spoke to Jordan, who has always wanted to get into D&D, and Alec, who's already into it, about putting together New Rollers, a Shared Screens podcast, where we're going to dive into everything Dungeons and Dragons, which will come out in us playing our own campaign, hopefully in the fall. Like Jordan said, we did our live stream where we created our characters really quick, because those will be, at least for me, a jumping off point for a lot of my questions, since it pertains to what we'll be playing. A quick introduction to our characters, we'll just go round robin. So I am a tiefling ranger. I picked an acolyte background because I have a whole thing where I was abandoned because I'm a demon baby. And little wood elves took me in, wood elves raised me, and now I wander, protecting them from demons. My favored enemy is the undead. Jordan, give a quick little thing on your...
I am a halfling fighter with a soldier background, and I have an eye patch. I don't remember my other setups, and I can't look it up because I'm recording, so... That's all you need to know. I'm a short guy with 2 knives and an eye patch, and I'm ready to fuck things up.
Yeah, the eye patch actually is its own class, so that's fantastic, yeah.
He lost his eye in the war, but not in the war, cooking for the war.
Yeah, I was a chef for the army, and I will. People will find out eventually how I lost my eye.
It meets meat,
And Alec, if you just want to take us through yours really quick.
Yeah, so I am let me just pull my character sheet. I'm a variant Aasimar monk, and I have the haunted one background. And I was kind of a utility player because I wasn't sure what everybody else was going with, so I was kind of the last second just filling in the gaps of the party. So I haven't quite come up with backstory and all that, but we got till the fall, so we got plenty of time.
And I really hope that from everything I know just from watching, I really hope that one of the other two boys that is playing in the campaign picks a cleric, because I'm afraid we'll be a party without a cleric, and that doesn't go well for people.
You know, I'm going to quote one of the famous GMs, Abria Iyengar, who said, the only hit point that matters is the last one.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, so Corey, do you want to give us some of your background on how you got into D&D, and then we'll dive right in?
Sure, I'll give just a brief little background for me. I, of course, was one of the nerdy kids in school, and I was just looking for ways to really maximize my nerdy output. And this was back in middle school, and one of my friends, longtime best friend, said, "Hey, would you want to try out this new game that I've found out about?" We're thinking of, mind you, this is still middle school, so we're like, yeah, let's play it like after school for like 30 to 45 minutes at a time. Because there was some designated time for after school activities like that, not just the sports. Lord knows I wasn't busy with those. And
Same,
so
brother.
we started playing. Yeah, we started playing. We used the original, I think this is maybe Ivy had just come out, or it's been quite a few years now. I probably should know that history. I rolled a nat one on my history check. I'm not going to check. But in any case, we had one of the box sets, the very beginner box sets, so we all took one of the minis. I got stuck with the elven lady. I was like, dope, let's roll. And we played for many months after school. We kind of dipping our toes in the water. We're like, oh yeah, this is something we should do more regularly. So when high school started, we were inclined to start an actual campaign. And so my friend who got us introduced became the DM, and we started playing like every week. I think Fridays after school, we'd meet up for a couple hours, have snacks and all that. Play for 2-3 hours. Just a great way to continue, keep the good times going, cap off the week, all the stresses of being a high schooler. And then once I went off to college, it was like, okay, 2 or 3 months, I was like, yeah, no, okay, good, I'm taking some time off. I haven't found a group that plays here, and randomly got asked to go to the city with one of my new friends from classes. And on the way back from the city, he pulls out a notebook and is drawing a map of something, and I'm like, oh, what's that? And he goes, oh, it's I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm drawing a city map for it's a game called D&D, and my eyes lit up. I was like, oh, we're so back. In fact, we never left. And so I've been playing with that DM since 2016 or so. And I just was saying before we started, I'm now in 2 campaigns at the moment. Just joined on to one recently, which is very exciting. Get to keep the characters straight, try not to mess up the accents or the motivations. Keep that background document on hand in case I'm like, do I have a sister? No, that's the other character. I've been playing for the better part since the better part more than 10 years now. And there's always much more to learn, but I've got a lot of experience. I've had a lot of great times at the table. And I'm very happy to share, what I've picked up along the way with you all today.
Great, thanks.
Cannot wait.
We may hop in with questions at points throughout, because we're all relatively new to this, but I'm really excited to dive on into the presentation.
Yes, fantastic. And without further ado, let me switch over to that. And I've got the ins and outs of imagination. So, that's what it boils down to, so let's begin. Wizard there. Alrighty. I put so many transitions in this PowerPoint that were so unnecessary. Forewarning.
George Lucas would be so jealous.
Listen, George has nothing on me. One of the first questions that comes to mind when we're talking about D&D is, what makes a table? First of all, we're all playing this now. I think I made this maybe before the pandemic, but we're all now playing in a world where there's a lot of virtual access. The silver lining of a pandemic is that a lot of online services have really improved and stepped up. So, whether you're playing online or whether you're playing in person, there is the physical table, but there's so much more than that. when we're thinking about it. Obviously, one of the things around the table is the players. It could be 3, 4, 5. It could also just be a single person and their DM or GM, which would be Dungeon Master or Game Master. Some people prefer either term. But this is a social game where you work together to solve problems that may arise in the form of quests, fights, puzzles, dungeons, of course, intrigue, and all the challenges and fun of roleplay. If you're so inclined, you can create a real character-driven narrative. Part of this, of course, is storytelling. It's shared storytelling, one of mankind's oldest professions, but with plastic dice. And so you can do a lot to create a real story between yourself, between the players, interacting with the world. One of the most important aspects as well of the table is that it is a safe space to play the game, physically and emotionally. Ignoring, someone rolls really badly and hits your eye with a die. That's known to happen every now and then, but otherwise physically safe. But, you don't want to feel like you're being interrupted. You don't want to feel like you're holding back from, expressing yourself in character at the moment, in a description or in your questions from DMs, where you got to kind of embrace that there are no dumb questions mentality. There will be dumb questions, but that's okay. So I think that all boils down to one of the most important points of a table is having respect there. You work with your dungeon master, not against them, and the same goes, vice versa. The DM works with you to tell the best story possible within the world they've created or are, borrowing from another creative source. You should be constantly communicating your intent, interest, and direction. All of that, of course, is easier said than done. But, hey, one of the great ways to practice social skills is when fighting goblins, turns out. So,
I truly have been sitting here giggling to myself ever since you said you can have a game that's just a DM and one person, because I cannot imagine the way Jordan and I would torture each other in that situation.
That can be a challenge. I've done it once or twice before. One time I did it was I played 2 characters at the same time just to balance it out. I think I had one healer and one more martial character to play as, which made some very amusing moments of me basically having dialogue with myself. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, listen, talking to myself is one of my great strong suits, so I didn't mind. But
I think that would cause, between you and I, Jordan, a fight on the level of you and I playing the last level of
Life is Strange.
Life is Strange, where you're in that labyrinth, and that's the only time we've ever legitimately screamed at each other with real anger behind it. I imagine this would be similar.
Yeah, no, I imagine it would be like, I don't know if anyone else used to watch it back in the day, but Smosh Games used to have a series called Backseat Gamer, which they would pick an open world game, and you had to do whatever the guy behind you said. And so they'd be playing like GTA, he'd be like, go into the military base, get 6 stars right away. And they'd get pissed off until eventually they'd switch seats. That would be us.
That's what it would be.
the worst impulses, yeah. Oh, that's listen. I don't know. I forget how exactly the that Takes Two of Us game ends, but I think in your case, the couple probably stayed divorced after that.
Oh no, this wasn't It Takes Two. This is Life is Strange.
Oh, Life is Strange. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just when you're running from the
creepy teacher, he gives you drugs. There's a maze.
Oh yes, yeah,
and we were arguing like a old couple on a road trip, where she was like, "Look at the map," and I'm like, "I'm fucking doing it."
It's
Morty,
so bad.
Morty, you've got the map upside down. We should have stopped and asked for directions.
You think you can do it? You want to fucking do it? Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing that I love anytime we play a video game. This is a small tangent, and then we'll go back to the PowerPoint. But anytime we're playing the video game, I scream at Jordan. At some point, Jordan goes, "Do you think you can do it better?" And I'm immediately it's over. My bluff has been called.
Do you want to get up here and teach the class?
Literally,
okay,
it's truly yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's I think one of the most natural things of interacting with friends and gaming together. And just to touch back to the point of respect, listen, you're gonna have disagreements on what direction the party's gonna go, but so long as y'all are in it together and committed to telling a good story, trying to go with the flow, We were just talking about Dimension 20. Obviously, a lot of those actors have some strong improv backgrounds, and so there's a lot of yes and to happen there. And so there's going to have being comfortable with that yes and mentality at times. But discussing how you're feeling, and sometimes you can do it better, but that's okay. You got to use what tools you have at your disposal, right? And speaking of tools, equipping your inventory. One of the touchstones of this game is your character sheet. This goes back all the long before there was D&D Beyond and Roll20 and Discord, all of these fantastic websites and tools that help us facilitate games online. It was a pen and pencil game, a pen and paper game. I feel like having a pen and a pencil would be a little redundant. Anyways, you definitely don't want to be writing too much in pen because your hit points are going to be changing constantly. You're gaining new abilities and whatnot, and so the character sheet reflects the long history of writing down all your stats because there's no way you can remember everything. It's great to have everything all written in one place. The current 5e 5th edition. The current edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and I think by far the most popular, has a great loadout. Trying to make it easy for folks to keep everything organized. So most character sheets would be a couple of pages, and you have all of your abilities, all the stuff you can do, details about who you are, what you're carrying on you. That's all important. So you've got all that on the character sheet. For you yourself as the player to have, another one of the mechanisms of the game is rolling dice. And so I think before we started, I was showing off my dice collection that I haven't had the chance to use since the pandemic because I haven't been playing in person. But this game relies on rolling dice, and so there's a little set of dice that you can use. If you're looking to buy dice, you'll probably find them in this configuration. But there's your D4, which is the pointy little triangle. Your D6, which is the generic kind of die. It's the emoji die. And then your D8, your D10, D100, D12, and D20. And so all of those dice, the number is how many faces they have, and the D20 is the most commonly used. Some players like to have little dice trays to roll their dice in so they don't go flying off the table. You can get pretty fancy with dice towers. All you need really is at your table one set of dice, but of course everyone likes to have their own, and there's all the superstitions attached. Ooh, this is a lucky die, this is an unlucky die, all that good stuff.
Now,
adds a little flavor.
Do they also make those little things they use in craft tables where you could just kind of bring the dice back to you? Or do you just use your hands?
Usually, just you pick them back up. Yeah, it's like manually fishing the pool balls out of the pockets. Yeah.
No,
I just love the idea of a DM having like a little pull thing to pull miniatures off. Like, I'm not getting up, just go over the screen.
Not the DM. A separate man that's still dressed like he works at a casino in a vest and a bow tie.
Just with the little visor.
Standing next to the table.
Dice back to you.
Yeah, the entire time. And it's like, hey, hands off, hands off.
Got to keep the pot secure. No, unfortunately, your own valet / tender does not come with most parties. I will say, I don't know. Listen, I've never played D&D with millionaires and billionaires, so yeah. Another thing you'll want to probably have with you is, since you don't have somebody paid to take notes for you, is probably a notebook or a notepad of some kind, and you can, again. You're not getting graded on how you play D&D. Judged maybe, but never graded. So your notes can reflect what is of interest to you, right? A lot of characters will use them, or a lot of players will use it to write down maybe a couple notes about their character, some points about characters they meet along the way in the game. Some of them will, write down, make sure they've got a full accounting of their inventory written down and all the little changes that happen therein. I picked up some pressed books of flowers. How nice! Let's add those in. Let's talk about where I got those. Make a little memory out of it. You can go as in depth or as shallow as you want with your notes. Some people play with bullet points. I play with someone who literally will write down every point of damage that's dealt in a combat encounter to keep track of it, which is not for me. But I take very thorough notes on just basically everything that happens. I really need to develop some shorthand or something because I can feel the arthritis cramps occurring early onset. But I also like to share those notes with my party at the end. I keep them in a Google Doc, and everyone can take a look and look back and remind me of something I forgot, or have them just as reference. So minimal equipment really is necessary to start a game. Most important thing, is your character sheet. At least one set of dice at the table for people to roll. Notebook for the players, and of course, your imagination. It's the most important thing you can bring with you because this game is literally all about your imagination and what you can do with that. So.
Yes, Jordan. Yes.
I had to do the little SpongeBob rainbow.
The little rainbow, of course. And of course, with that, you got to get your head in the game. You have to, give yourself all the space you can to let your imagination roam free. This game is inherently silly on its premise. Your children or adults playing make-believe in a made-up place, rolling dice, literally and figuratively. But the game is so much more. It is an escape, a world for you and your friends to explore, a place to be powerful, a place to be someone other than yourself, a world full of rare magic items and different species, vast dungeons, and yes, of course, dragons too. It's in the name, folks. But there's so much there for you to engage with, and I think if you really allow yourself and remind yourself to be immersed in the world, you can. And, it obviously helps with the DM setting the scene and providing you some information to kind of ground you in the world, make you feel like you understand it a little bit more. The other thing is you probably won't be, like, quote-unquote, in character for the entire session. You may not even, speak as your character in a voice. We have so many great examples of high-level live play to follow along. Dimension 20, High Rollers, Critical Role, all these folks. Some of those folks are literally voice actors by profession. Many of them have, lots of training in improv and comedy and storytelling and all these different ways. You don't need to be them. You need to be yourself and have fun with it. You don't need to make a funny voice for your character, but if you want to have, an accent to really get into the character, if that helps you, go for it.
Jordan just rolls out with like a heavy Russian accent.
Hello, my friends.
Heavy.
Listen, sometimes it works, and sometimes that adds into the flavor. Helps kind of base the flavor of your character and their experiences, and maybe you can help kind of do some world building together. The dwarves are Russian, sure. The gnomes are Italian, absolutely. So all that's fun, but again, the most important thing is being willing to play the game and have the most fun you can with your friends and those around you at the table.
That's not a big meatball. I am just a little man.
The meatball is a normal size. I am just a 4'2".
Jordan, the way you described your character, I almost imagine him like Irish.
Yeah,
just an angry leprechaun is surely what you
The
made.
thing is, I didn't want to do the angry leprechaun, so in my head I was like, maybe Scottish, but I'm not going to do a fucking Shrek voice for every single one of these playthroughs, man.
Yeah.
Every sentence with donkey to get yourself, to level yourself out there, yeah.
It's truly like that's what I kept joking when we were creating it that I was like, I'm essentially making Hellboy. You made a leprechaun, Jordan. Okay. You just made an angry leprechaun.
I'm gonna switch it up. I'm always gonna have something that doesn't match. This guy, he's gonna have a transatlantic accent.
Ooh, love that. Absolutely.
And I'm gonna come at you with my two
this
knives.
Man is gonna sound like he just got off the fucking Titanic.
Hey, you're not gonna touch my pot of gold, see? They'll never get my Lucky Charms. That's great. Well, speaking of gnomes, that's just one, and halflings, that's just two of the many races at your disposal here in the game. There's, all these core fantasy elements that'll be very familiar to even someone who's never touched a D20 before. Your elves, your dwarves, your goblins and orcs and all that jazz. There's some other ones too. There are, people who have elemental heritage. These are the Genasi, and they can come in different flavors. water, fire, earth, wind, that kind of stuff. There are the Eladrin, who are like elves, but a little more extra. You've got, because this is a world where many communities often live together, you've got half-orcs and half-dwarves and, humans of very mixed backgrounds. You've got the Goliath, who are born of giants, all that fun stuff. And again, each campaign will maybe have its own distribution of races, right? It may be that in this in this generic fantasy world, most of them all live together in the cities, in the countryside, all over. It may be that you have more heavy concentrations of dwarves in the mountains, underneath those mountain peaks in their dwarven halls. You maybe have enclaves and exclaves and all that good stuff. So it's always fun to talk with your DM about what kind of world you're living in, and also feel the agency to provide some input. It would be cool maybe if there's a tiefling neighborhood in this city. You could call it Hell's Kitchen, maybe. So lots of fun stuff. And each of these races, or really species, it will be one of the cornerstones of your character, but obviously it can be as important or as unimportant as you give it weight. Many of the races from rules as written in the handbooks and all the material that's been published, they have certain bonuses. For example, the elves originally have a +2 to their dexterity. They're very limber and lithe and flexible, and they're the elegant elves sneaking through the woods. That kind of trope is incurred there. Other rule sets you can play with allow you to make some flexibility. So not every elf maybe that you play will have +2 to dexterity, but you can fiddle around with them. But you have a certain amount of movement there, a couple of points to add here and there. So more recent updates to the game have given you alternative options in that way. But some of these races as well, they have different abilities. The Goliaths, for example, who are born of giants, they're a little bit resistant to cold. They're fine at high altitudes. You don't have to worry about that because they're born from giants who live in the tallest mountain peaks, and as a result have great lungs. I wouldn't want to run a race against them, but maybe they're not as dexterous. They're very strong, but you have the ability to make some slight variations with the actual mechanics of the race. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, there's no race that is really statted out to the max more than others. There's no objectively best one. It really depends on what you want to play, what kind of character you want to have. And maybe what little small bonuses you might find useful along the way. I have a little joke here in my little hand notes, which is tieflings are the best race if you're gay, but that's just a trope because all the LGBTQ plus community plays tieflings. But again,
my favorite comment on D&D Beyond is on the Tiefling race page. There's a comment that somebody wrote that's like, Tieflings are my favorite race, I don't know why. And somebody underneath went, because they look cool and they always have something to prove. And I was like, that's the vibe.
There you go. And you know what? And they're very powerful to prove it, so that's pretty awesome. Everyone has their own, feelings about, tieflings are fantastic. You get to play. Does your tiefling have goat hooves or horns or a tail or all three?
I went into a whole thing about how I found out mine does not have to have a tail, and tails really freak me out, and I don't want it to have one. We got
Tail's
horns and we got
weird.
sharp teeth.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I feel like because I am female, that is going to be taken away from me and turned into a thing. I just don't want to go there.
For me, I just think of how annoying it must be to have custom clothing built for your. Or you go to the vineyard vines of D&D Beyond. Yeah, can you cut out a little hole just in the back, slightly above the base of the spine? Thank you. Yeah, it's a gift. I'm buying it for my tiefling friend. You understand. And can you wrap it as well? If get a gift wrap for that. Thank you.
And some of them, their tails look like if they're snake people, they're literally snakes that just grew limbs where their tails are very thick and taper out, and others have the traditional devil's tail, and I'm like, all of this is just very strange to me.
Very strange, and honestly, lots of options. That's why we spend so long in our character creation, whether it be in tabletop games or video games. Good hours spent there, going through. Oh gosh, do I want it to be a barbed tail? Well, that could be fun. But yeah, again, there's lots
Our
of
stream was
flexibility.
literally
There.
like an hour and a half, so yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that can be good fun building characters together, kind of figuring out, this, filling some gaps that others may have.
Or having chat there to be like, oh, I don't know what stat to put this one in, and
Some helpful
we all know
advice. Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It turns out when you know nothing about a game, sometimes the backseating can be a little helpful. But yeah. So again, to sum it up, race is one of these factors that will help shape what your character ends up looking like, and can be interesting ways to impact your role play, right? And that all depends on kind of the setting that you're in. One of the other cornerstones, and really, I mean, probably the most important element, is your class. And this is kind of the wide array of all the fun things, all the fantasy elements you can be. There are so many classes, and of course, if you're going beyond the regular, officially published sources, there's even more, custom classes that people have made. There's different subclasses, but there's a lot of variation on what you can do, no matter what kind of class you do choose to play. And so I can just go through a couple, these. I know there's a ranger in the party, right? The tiefling is a ranger.
Yeah.
Ranger is a fun class and has a lot of interesting elements to it. A lot of it relating to travel and terrain, exploration, foraging.
I want a weasel
yeah.
is one of the big things.
Ooh,
I want
yes.
a pet
Animal
weasel.
companions, yes.
Yeah.
Weasels are pretty... I don't know how good they'll be in a fight, but honestly, emotional support weasel...
Well, see, this is what I think is funny, is I have my weapons are a whip, 2 axes, and a bow and arrow, and I just like the idea that I'm this big scary tiefling, and I just have a tiny weasel.
Little weasel.
Like, I just have this little weasel that is, like, my pride and joy.
I am Agatha, I shall be your doom. Here's Mr. Mittens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly, like, it's one of those things, like, where in, spoilers for Critical Role, but, Ashley Johnson's character has a monkey named Mister. And I was like, this is the shit I love. It's just like, or like in the first season when Laura Bailey has Trinket and just has a bear.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's a bear. Like, that's helpful in a fight.
An armored bear at that, yeah.
I was going to say, to complete the Hellboy reference, name it Abe.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Abe the
Like,
Weasel, yeah.
I was also considering Barry because Hellboy loves Barry Manilow, so I debated having a tiny weasel named Barry.
I'm just remembering the scene from the second movie where they're just sitting there after like the
drunk, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Projected, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Because this is the thing. I love Hellboy, but Hellboy's whole thing is he loves cats, and I was like, I don't want it to be cats because that's too similar to me in real life. But like, it's the scene from the first movie where he saves them from the subway, and just me coming home with a milk crate of like 4 weasels, and it's like, these are my pets now. These are my babies.
Going back to camp.
Weasels are just the cats of the forest.
Yeah, like, look at this. I found a little weasel. Like, it's a vibe.
What's that tweet? Listen, when God asks his choir to sing, will the weasels not be among the voices?
I love that fucking meme.
Well, however the wording goes.
Exactly.
It's so good. It's just beautiful, yeah.
When God
All of
sings
God's
with his creations, will a turtle not be part of the choir? I think about that tweet every goddamn day of my life.
I wake up
Jordan
with my
does choir
mantra,
all
yeah.
the time.
As he should.
Also, I didn't call it out last slide, but because it's now 2 slides in a row, I have to. Both of these slides have had Kratos lookalikes.
Oh
Well,
my
yeah,
goodness,
because the Goliaths.
Yeah, the Goliaths are very...
Yeah.
The Goliaths, the markings, in some worlds those are tattoos, and some of them they are like just natural striations and patterns on the body. This barbarian here very much literally feels like it's Kratos. It's Kratos up to the point of a copyright infringement.
Yeah. This one is like...
And no further.
Yeah, no, like the last slide was like, Walmart Kratos, and this one is just like, oh, PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale Kratos, and that is a reference for 10 people.
And 2 of them are here.
Yeah, they are.
There you go. And that's the importance of knowing your audience, yeah. And you can see on this slide, there's lots of, very, very tropey pictures that really, encapsulate the characters here. And one of them there is just 2 over from the ranger with, the auburn hair and green cape and bow. 2 over is the fighter with their sword and shield. you don't get much more classic heroes than a fighter. Someone who has their weapon of choice. They know what to do. They will fight to the bitter end. They've got a second wind to get them back up, even when you think they're out. Whole hack and slash. So much fun. Yeah. Very powerful.
I truly worry we're gonna lose Jordan right out of the gate. I truly worry that
Leroy Jenkins. Yeah, then I'm done.
Yeah, I don't know, because I know when you start, we're all level 1 for this. You start with 10 hit points, and I know your armor class is higher than mine because you're a fighter. But I'm still afraid you're gonna be like, I got 2 more hit points. Let me do second wind. It's fine, and Jordan's just gonna die.
Okay, the other thing that's gonna probably drive me to that is because I chose a soldier background. I start out with so many fucking weapons.
You're a walking arsenal.
Yeah,
truly.
And all I wanted was 2 daggers and maybe a shield as well. And I'm getting an axe, 4 daggers. I have so much sharp shit.
Javelin.
Yeah.
You are the soccer mom with an SUV full of weapons. Just rattling around. Yeah.
Or those people who sell watches, you just open your
I was going to say,
what weapon do you need? What weapon?
I'm going to enchant my jacket to hold it and then just be like, hey, whatever you guys need, I'll be the walking closet.
That a good idea. Get a bag of holding sewn into your jacket. That sounds like a great idea. So yeah, the fighter has much proficiency with weapons, and depending on how the game goes, can get a lot of them. I know in one of my campaigns I've been playing, we have a fighter who has about 3 different kinds of long polearm instruments on them, because we keep on fighting enemies and taking some of their weapons and getting some magical items, and he's like, well, now I've got options. I can switch between my halberd and my bone glaive and my spear. The barbarian's got a lance. It's great. So one of the kind of the small bits of humor of this game is just imagining your party kind of walking around clunk, clunk, clunk.
Yeah.
It also makes me think of that picture of now Charles III having his vestments bestowed upon him, and the little pop-up, you are over-encumbered. your speed will be reduced.
Jordan just clinks every time he moves. There's just the same faint sound of metal hitting each other.
It's just shuffling in the darkness.
I mean, that was me and Zelda this morning. I connected a stick to a sword, and I was like, now I have a really long sword. Let's fucking go.
Yep.
Behold, a spear? Yeah.
I have invented the spear.
Literally, I'm only a few hours in. This Zelda game is basically MacGyver, but Zelda. Because I'm just, putting shit together and going, this works, bro.
So
and that's the energy I'm going to bring into
You linked
D&D.
A sword with a stick, huh?
I linked
them together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Fantastic. That kind of ingenuity is important. And I think it's also important to say, we have all these classes and these kind of archetypes. Many of them will have some real, core elements of the class. For example, the ranger has, favored enemy and favored terrain. These are things that help the ranger stand out and really excel in certain areas. Your favorite enemy is undead. You're going to have some the upper hand on if you're fighting an undead versus you're fighting some random Joe bandit on the side of the road. The warlock, for example, they have much fewer capabilities with spell slots than a lot of the other classes that have magic. But they have something called invocations, eldritch invocations, to make up for that. They have things that they can do either very cheaply or free, and they can do them constantly. Whereas another class would have to expend more resources to do that. For example, you can have a warlock who can cast some low-level spells without any materials at all. Whereas another, and they don't have to expend a spell slot for that. The paladin has their smites, which are a way they do lots of damage. It can be certain type of damage that helps against undead or others, but that's another core feature. The barbarian, our Kratos knockoff here, the barbarian has their rage. That's kind of really the grounding of their
love using
their
that.
class. exactly, and
That's
you
what
know,
I'm playing. I'm playing as a barbarian in my current campaign, so
oh, fantastic! Yeah, it's getting to throw in those reckless attacks, really doing a lot of damage, and
going
then
into a
really hoping
frenzy.
that they don't hit you. You hope that you kill the enemy quick enough where they don't have time to hit you back.
Exactly.
And there's some these classes that are more utility, like bards, which have their bardic inspirations. The bard's whole shtick is using the power of their charisma to bend reality to their will. And whether that's you're like Chris Pine in the Dungeons and Dragons movie, playing a jaunty tune on your lute, and that's where your magic comes from, or whether you're a poet bard, you could be a bard rapper. You could be a slam poet bard. There are many options and ways to manifest your power there.
So all the kids
yeah.
that dropped out of high school were actually D&D players that were bard rappers. I thought
Yeah.
Exactly,
they were making fun of the D&D kids the whole time.
I will say I am shocked that Jordan did not choose Bard, and I feel like there are other people out there with me who are also shocked that Jordan did not choose Bard.
Oh, because I've joked about wanting this D&D character with 2 knives that just jump, and specifically being short with 2 knives for years that I have to do it. Eventually, I will be a bard, and my dick will get me in and out of every situation.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
fucked my
You're
way into
already
this
thinking
issue.
like
I
a
can
bard,
fuck
yeah.
my way out of it.
This is what I expected.
And
That's what I
yeah.
truly. I was
Oh.
like, well, Jordan's gonna. I don't even remember who in share screens I was talking to that I was like, well, Jordan's gonna be a bard, so we have that covered. And then like you totally didn't do it. I was like, wow, it's like your whole thing is wanting to be able to talk your way out of anything.
And I've told you when I play bard what my name is going to be, and I am so ready for that.
I've blocked it out.
Okay, wonderful.
My brain has
It'll be even more of a surprise for
shut
season
that
2.
out.
You have a lot of versatility with all these classes, and I won't go into every class here. But you mentioned a cleric. You've got your healers. Some classes have the ability to heal, others don't. Jordan playing a fighter, you'll be able to heal yourself, not so much your friends.
I'm all I need, bitch.
Exactly. You can be the shield. So long as you've got your hit points, you can stand between them and any threat, right?
Yeah.
The typical wizard will not have any healing spells. They'll have a vast array of, they'll have this arcane arsenal spells that can, something as classic as a giant fireball, some more utility spells like being able to summon a magic circle, but they won't have that kind of divine healing magic. And likewise, a cleric probably won't be able to, cast all the spells that a wizard can, but they will have that healing and that ability to keep their party up. And it's not just limited to the cleric, of course. Bards, druids, paladin, rangers all have the ability to heal folks, certain capabilities. I think Asimar actually have some latent racial healing abilities where they have a certain number of hit points. Yeah, lay on hands. They have that as part of their feature because they are celestially infused beings. They've got some magic touch there. And again, talking about the flexibility of these classes, each class has a subclass. Options. You get to a certain level. You're all starting as level 1. Some classes do have their their type at level 1. A cleric, for example, a warlock, a sorcerer. For the sorcerer and the warlock, you kind of need to know either, from where you're getting your power, and then for a cleric, it's kind of what kind of, priest or holy figure you might be. But, folks like barbarians, paladins, fighters, it takes a few more levels to kind of form what kind of person of that class you're going to be. A fighter, you might become your classic, real hero. Or you might be more of a tactician. Rogues have a lot of variation. For example, what they can be. You could be an inquisitive rogue. You can spot everything. You can do insight checks into the weaknesses of your opponent. Or you could be a more classic thief. Be more of an assassin. Lots of variations. And many of these subclasses will give you either unique abilities that not every other cleric would get, not every other warlock would get. Or they'll give you access to different lists of spells which you can use when you level up and gain new spells. So, two different types of cleric. You might have a life cleric who will get some really good healing spells, and you might have a light cleric who gets fireball. So it can depend on how you want to play that character. You may be drawn to certain abilities of different subclasses.
I just need one person to take it from the team and be a healer. I know it can't be us three because we already made our characters, but I do not want Alec and I being the ones dependent on to save your lives.
It's funny you say that because I am usually I usually will be like, and I think Alec mentioned this, kind of like I wanted to fill in kind of the gap in the party. I wanted to see what they needed. I have always been that guy, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me help round out the party. When I'm a paladin, I'm like, yeah, let me be the shield and get one of the features, the types of fighting that allows me to block some damage to my allies nearby. The current character of the longer of the two campaigns I'm playing is a cleric as well, because I was like, I'm gonna try this new subclass and that'll be fun. And I realized I've played like 3 clerics, with this DM since 2016. Maybe I should branch out a little bit more. That'll be for later. And a funny point about being dependent on, and also talking about getting knocked out right out the gate. Our first encounter, we started at level 1 with that campaign. We went into a cave to root out some goblins who were disrupting the local quarrying activities, and my cleric in like full armor with a shield got knocked out by a goblin sling that was like I think a nat 20 roll, and it just knocked me out. And I was like, now how did that? Oh yeah, well listen, folks, that's why you got to wear a helmet. But having your healer go down, not always the best thing. So part of having a party and working together is finding out the strengths and weaknesses of each of your classes, and where you have synergy. Where your fighting styles can really come together to help do the most damage to your opponents. Protect the most townsfolk, whatever the situation may call for. But I think that's one of the beautiful things of D&D is having these different characters with completely different skill sets, but being able to help out one another and really come together and face that adversity, whatever it may be, whatever form it may take. It's kind of the team building aspect of it. That's one of the things I love about this game is that moment when the party really clicks together and is like, yeah, we're an adventure group. We may have all met in some small little tavern on the edge of nowhere. Now we're in this fight together. Hear like the triumphant choral music in the background. It's all good stuff.
Now I know what Overwatch players are always complaining about when they're like, we need a fucking healer. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And here you see kind of the subclass unlock level, the little chart there. You can see only a few start with it right out the gate. A couple more get theirs at 2nd level, but for the most part, you're getting your subclass at your 3rd level. Still very much in that realm of the early game of the early stages of gameplay. So it shouldn't take too long for you to kind of figure out and unlock all of those unique abilities that help set you on the path of, okay, here's what I can start crafting my character around. Here's what I'm gonna try and start getting really good at with this subclass. Or I know there's a spell that I want to take further down the list. Let me start, building my character towards that. All the fun stuff that comes with, these kind of paths and options and trees for you to tech into. Another thing that actually helps, provide some mechanical bonuses, and we mentioned the soldier and acolyte background. Your backgrounds are something that help both with the flavor of your character and your roleplay experience, but also they give you tangible mechanical benefits. Many backgrounds will give you a certain number of extra proficiencies with skills. That's something we'll get into later. Some of them will give you more options for languages, which can be very helpful. The new group I'm playing with, the second party, the newer of the two parties, there's a very funny situation where not every character speaks the same languages, and part of that is because the common language, which is what basically every single D&D character in most campaigns will speak, the common in this world that we're playing in is broken into different continents, and so not every character is from the same continent, and so some of them are speaking the common language of this continent, and Elvish and Primordial, but not Gnomish and Giant and the common of the other continent. So sometimes there can be some linguistic shenanigans, but D&D has a very optimistic world where there's so many multilingual people. Couldn't be me in America, but whatever.
Oh yeah, truly. I think Alec's character speaks 4 and I speak 4 between our backgrounds and our race and our class, that I'm like, I could never in real life. Like, I could never. I started learning German, I've forgotten all of the Spanish I knew.
I took my 2 years of required Spanish in high school, and I just got out.
Yeah.
I sucked at Spanish.
My Spanish is also pretty rusty.
Okay, Jordan, shut the fuck up. You speak Arabic fluently. Like,
fluent's rough. And also, that's also what pissed off my parents about me being bad at Spanish, because there's 200 words in Spanish and Arabic that are exactly the same.
Oh, come on.
Going back to the last podcast we did, thanks to the Moors.
The more you know.
Yeah, we talk about the Moors in our most recent podcast.
I think there's always
Stop
more
letting
room
us
to
record
expand on them.
alone. Stop letting us record just the two
It was
of
a
us.
Bridgerton podcast, okay? It was historical in context.
Remind me to start listening to your podcast, guys. It sounds fantastic.
Oh, everybody should listen to Tea Time, a Bridgerton podcast.
Ooh,
I listen to all our podcasts.
I made
Listen to all
Jordan
of them.
watch Bridgerton, and he loves it. And so we just recorded a spoiler cast on the new spin-off that just came out.
Yeah, about Queen Charlotte. Ooh, how fun. I know I watched the first season, and I need to catch up on the second season.
The second season is great because the love interest is so hot. She is so attractive.
Both of them. They're both so
Stunning. They are both stunning.
Sisters, right?
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen Sex Education, it's the Indian girl from Sex Education on Netflix, and she is beautiful in Bridgerton.
We always love to see the Netflix actors get their get some crossover works on the same platform before their show inevitably gets cut after 2 seasons for no reason. So there's always new shows for them to join, right?
I'll just pop you over here. It's fine.
You're on the lot this week.
Exactly.
Just go over there.
Yeah.
Can you just do a quick costume change and give the script a little run through and see if anything appeals to you? Yeah. Speaking of costume changes, your starting equipment also will be. That was a flawless segue there. Your starting equipment will also be part of your background usually, and the way you can get your items that your character has to start out, it can differ. Some characters will, you get a certain amount of gold, and you can basically. Have a little shopping spree. Oh, I'll buy this hand axe for 10 gold. I'll buy this backpack for, 2 gold, and figure out what you want. Otherwise, there's some starting recommendations, and one.
We did that.
Yeah, if you made your characters on D&D Beyond, for example, there's the starting equipment option, which gives you some choices to go through. You'll get your weapon, you'll get your backpack, you'll get all of the different things your character will get. An acolyte, for example. They'll have some vestments. They'll have some incense, like a prayer wheel. Whereas the soldier will get more things like some dice or some kind of game that like tarot cards or deck of
I got a deck of cards and chainmail.
Yeah.
There you go. See, exactly,
when we were doing this, his options were a deck of cards or bone dice. And Jordan went,
dice, yeah.
I'm going to take a deck of cards because bone dice sounds scary. Alec and I would be like, I think it's just dice made of bones.
And probably not even human bone.
I realize now it's we need that type of material. We'll use this animal we killed for food and clothing. But for some reason, I was like, what if they're cursed and they're humans? That could have been a person, and now I'm using them to play fucking ye olde Monopoly.
I feel like that's a great thing to do to your enemies, though, is you're like, we kill somebody, and you're like, I have to take his bones to turn them into dice.
Remember, folks, use every part of the big bad evil person.
Exactly. This is the whole vibe I want to have as a ranger. Is I'm just gonna use their whole fucking body.
I'm a chef. I'll use every part out of every creature, human or non.
There you go.
Okay.
You do need to check, though. You need to make sure that you're not getting weasel bone dice, because that is simply unconscionable.
I will slit your throat in your sleep.
Exactly. You need to boycott
Unless the weasel
bone
died
dice.
of natural causes.
Yes, and then use his body
then
respectfully.
that is respectful. Yes, that's fair. So, And your weapons and tools, your ability to use those will depend in part on your ability scores. I found this great graphic here. Our NWNet, it's credited there. We love to credit our things that we shamelessly steal off of Google Images. Your ability scores just reflect how good your character can be at doing certain things. For example, me with my IBS and lactose intolerance and acid reflux, I've got a low constitution. I've got a low wisdom as well. Maybe my charisma's a little higher just because I never shut up, so I naturally have gotten a little practice at talking about things. But essentially, your character, how they interact with the world, can be affected by their ability scores. If the barbarian, who's you're more likely to give your barbarian a very high strength score, they're probably going to have an easier time punching down a door than your yet to be created bard, who may be physically weak, but they could probably talk to the person on the other side of the door and convince them to open it. But yes, so there's a little chart here, and this essentially helps provide the numbers that you're going to add to things. If you're attacking someone with a great axe, you're going to add your strength score and a couple of other modifiers, perhaps. If you have a negative strength score, that's going to subtract away from not only your ability to hit, but also the damage you do, hilariously. I often make strength my dump stat, which is the concept of like, oh, I rolled really badly and my character's probably not going to use this a lot. Dump stat. And well, maybe I don't need, as a wizard, I probably don't want to have a -2 to my intelligence, which I use to cast my spells, but I'm not going to be hitting people over the head with clubs anytime soon, so let me be a weak wizard. In certain classes, well, you'll want your stats to be higher. For example, I just said the, barbarian, depends on having a good strength and good constitution. Your wizard will want to have a high intelligence. Some of your other casters will be wisdom. Their magic comes from their wisdom. So that'd be, clerics and rangers. If you are a warlock or a bard or a sorcerer or a paladin, your actual, the way you get your magic is through your charisma. For your paladins, it's your level of like devotion to a cause. Your warlock is because you got some powers from your patron, whatever they may be. So all these ability scores help determine a lot of other features of your character, how good or bad you might be at those. And of course, all of it is just a roll of the dice. So.
Yeah. What, Jordan?
I just said
did you have your hand?
Chish.
Oh, yeah, I thought you put your hand up.
Nah.
I did, I've gone through this presentation and edited a few times because I tried to see how many puns I could get away with before my friends just stopped listening to me. So far, so good. So again, your ability scores factor into your skills as well. And these are one of the most common ways you'll probably interact with the world. You're not always punching things to figure out the world. There's always Minecraft for that, right? Mm-hmm. For example, if you're trying to figure out something about was there a battle fought in this field a long time ago? You'd roll your history skill check, and you would add your intelligence modifier, and also if you are trained in that. And we go back to backgrounds. Backgrounds provide some extra proficiencies in things. For example, an acolyte should be insight and religion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have a +4 religion because
very
of the
solid,
acolyte.
yeah. Exactly, yeah. So you really know, you went to catechism, you went to Sunday school, you really know your stuff.
Like you in real life.
Oh,
yeah.
God. Yeah, but I also have a +4 athletics, which is not like me in real life.
And that, you went to church camp, where there's lots of physical activities. So these skills are a number of ways you can interact with the world as well. You want to steal something, you want to steal a coin purse off of an NPC, roll a sleight of hand for me. You want to sneak around in the darkness, roll a stealth. Oh, you're not very dexterous, it's not going to be a high score probably unless you roll really well. And sometimes that modifier can really be the difference between success and failure. And And some classes actually will have natural boosts to scores. Rogues and bards, for example, because of the way their class is set up, they can kind of, I think, actually they have abilities called Jack of all trades, which is even skills that they're not trained with or have proficiency in. They get to add like half of their modifier to it anyways, just to give them a little boost because they're so well-rounded.
I hate people like that.
It's infuriating. But that should be the least annoying thing about your bard if you play them right. So yeah, good way to interact. And then one of the skills actually is your initiative skill. It's not in that list, but it's modified by your dexterity, how quickly you can spring into battle. And there undoubtedly will be battle. It's a big part of D&D, especially the 5th edition. There's a lot of mechanics relating to it. It's not everyone's favorite part of D&D, but it's part of your character overcoming adversity, fighting villains, saving townsfolk from some bandits or wolves, finally confronting the evil necromancer who's been plotting your demise for a year in game. Finally getting to face down against them and fight them can be very rewarding and a nice culmination of all your efforts. And the way that you do battle, will differ from campaign to campaign. You can have, very classic, grid system layout. Sometimes you've got some pre-printed maps if you've bought them, or if you're online, you're using some ones that are provided. The internet is full of resources where you can find a lot of maps, a lot of like good compilations of free battle maps to use. I know when I started playing D&D, I was playing with physical, like floor tile tokens and physical miniatures for my characters. The good thing about it is to play a campaign, you don't need any of that though. You can simply, lay out the battlefield in your mind. This is called Theater of the Mind, and many folks play it this way. I've played campaigns with it. I've played campaigns without it. Or essentially you get the battlefield described to you, or the room you're in, or the situation you're fighting your way out of, described to you, the parameters, where there's walls, there's the exit, and then you can proceed from there, and your character can kind of move around. But there are important aspects. Your spells will have certain ranges. Your weapons can only go out so far. You can only shoot a bow so far before it becomes less effective. So maps and tokens and tiles can be really helpful tools to assist you with that.
Yeah, something.
And of course, everyone likes miniatures too. They're very fun to customize and paint and all that stuff. So
something we've actually just started in the campaign I'm in. I think it's called like Google Jam boards or something like that. Essentially, you can. They've been like the DM's been putting images in there, and then like you can kind of put an image to be like our token, and then. You're just like, oh yeah, the squares are this distance, so we can kind of extrapolate based off our walking distance, our range, and all that.
How far it will take you to get to this place? Yeah, that sounds very cool. I'm very jelly of your jam boards. Yeah.
So, little tip out there for anybody. It's like I don't know who thought of it, but we just started using it. It's been pretty useful just for that visualizing aspect.
Yeah, and I will say the one that I've been using the most frequently now is Fantasy Grounds, which is something that I'm new to from the older of the two campaigns I'm currently playing. But that, again, we talked about how so many more resources are available now because of number one, the growing interest in Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop games like it, but also because of so many online resources developing further over the last couple of years. There's some real advancements made. I remember, playing with Roll20 back 7 years ago, versus like checking it out now recently. They've added a lot of features, and importing maps, being able to upload character art, to put on a token, to move around. You have a lot of ability there, and of course, for everyone who
you said that was Fantasy Ground.
Fantasy Grounds, I believe, is the name of it. Yeah.
Grounds. Okay. Just curious if you're looking to.
Grounds for removal, from this podcast.
Lord.
I'm recording. I'll
This
leave.
is why we wanted him, or we felt like he should be the bard.
Yeah, see, this is really why all of us were like, hey, yeah, of course Jordan's gonna be a bard. Like,
I don't
He
want to
wanted
be
to
what
be
I
the
am in
bard.
real life, okay?
okay,
He
don't
wanted
turn
to be
my
the
words
bard.
around back
Now
on
he's
me.
barred from playing. So, and there's lots of for folks who are fortunate enough to play in person, or who just want to have a little token representative. For example, I collect all these dice, but I'm not using them. It's nice to have them. A lot of websites you can use to design your own miniatures for the campaigns you're playing in, to have for yourself or for play. So many resources out there to look and find. None of that. You can invest in that as much as you like. You don't have to be too much of a material girl to spend all that money on miniatures and campaign tiles and all that kind of stuff. But you can find it cheaper or free online.
Okay.
Speaking of material girl, of course, we talked a little bit about your inventory and all the items your character is going to have. This is kind of an additional aspect of how you're engaging with the world. Are you wearing chainmail armor? You're going to have trouble stealthing down that hallway, more so than your friend wearing padded or leather armor. We talked about figuring out ranges in combat. If you're fighting with a dagger, you're only going to be able to stab someone who's next to you or throw your dagger, whereas someone with a halberd or some kind of polearm, they're actually going to be able to reach someone an additional 5 feet away from them. So your tools and equipment will impact your ability to engage with the world. Heavier
Using a
armor,
sword
yeah.
versus tying a sword to a stick and using the sword that way.
It's still and technically the sword gets stronger because there's something else there.
That's exactly how that works. It's all additive. Greater than the sum of its parts.
It's the centrifugal force. You get the more swing, because it's the larger arc and all that. Yeah. We know science.
And then the sword breaks off and flies behind you and stabs your healer, and then not great. But
Yeah, and then you've got game over for the 5th time in the 1 hour, and you yell "fuck," and it's like 3 a.m, and the guy downstairs is like, "Hey, can you be quiet, please?"
Did that
my
happen?
children are sleeping.
That's all made up.
I was about to say Jordan.
I think Jordan just had a prophetic vision of the future.
I mean, hey, ask me in 12 hours if it happened, maybe.
Make sure to someone write that down. Take a note for the next episode of the podcast to follow up on that. Yeah.
Check in.
Yeah. So all these tools and armor and magic items, you can there's ways to get those around the world. You can stop by a blacksmith and get a new weapon, or maybe get some repairs done if yours gets broken somehow. Say you roll a nat 1 and accidentally snap your sword in half. That kind of thing. And there's plenty of magic items as well that you can do certain things. We joked about having a jacket that can hold anything. The bag of holding is one of the most famous D&D items. Over a couple of editions, I believe. And that's being able to store all of your inventory, or up to like 3,000 pounds of it in one place. Turns out pretty helpful.
It's also
of course,
such a thing in pop culture. It's like you got Mary Poppins' bag, you've got Jimmy Neutron's little cube, Hermione's little bag. Like, it's just, a thing that can fit anything has just been so common.
Mary Poppins is a warlock, and I think not enough people are saying that. I'm glad you're getting to the truth of that with her devious witchcraft.
Or did she just give the kids drugs?
Only one way to check. See if she's got any in her inventory.
Was it sugar or was it cocaine?
It turns out actually a spoonful of Molly or meth makes the medicine go down. Didn't quite have the same ring to it, and so they edited it. The rewrites are important, and that's why we support our writers guilds.
We support WGA.
Ooh.
God.
So you can find all sorts of magic items as well. You can collect magic items from dungeons very commonly as treasure. Say you're finding the remnants of an old temple that's been inhabited by Yuan Ti serpent warriors. You've cleared them out. You've defeated the enemy. Now all the spoils are there, for the taking. A magical sword, that that has some abilities related to the deity whose temple this was. Neat, very cool. Or you can just buy them from some kind of merchant, and again, lots of versatility on what these magic items can do as well. You can have swords that are just better swords. They're magically infused, and so they deal more damage. You can have something like the 10-foot collapsible rod. It can be very, very helpful. Yeah, the immovable rod is extremely helpful. Yeah. Oh yes, yeah. You can get a lot of hijinks of that. There are items that can store spells within them, and augment your magical ability. So there's all sorts of neat little treasures to find, and I think that's one of the fun things. And what's more addictive than that little sound of Link opening the chest and finding something special, right?
Yeah.
The immovable rod is not going to be the name of my bard.
Although Rodney, that's kind of a good bard name, yeah. You could be Hot Rodney, very speedy. But,
Take me for a ride.
So, talking about spells, spells are one of the ways certain classes will interact with the game. Although I think every single class has the ability to get spells. For example, the fighter was the quintessential hack and slash warrior. There's actually a subclass you can take called the Eldritch Knight, which basically just means you're a fighter. Now you've got some access to spells. You won't get the high-level spells that wizards get, but it's a little extra magical oomph.
Okay.
Spells, one of the fun fantasy components of this game, and kind of one of the important things to remember with that is, Magic has rules, and this is a game with rules to facilitate the fair judicial practice of it. All of your spells will have a casting time, how long it takes to cast them, your range, how far you can cast them, what you need to cast them. For example, some clerics will have a holy symbol that they can cast their magic out of. Instead of a material component, they can simply send their spells out of their rosary beads, right? Otherwise, you might need to expend some incense as a cost, or dust, or a diamond costing 200 gold. Some of them get very specific and have actual gold costs tied to them. And depending, of course, how you want to play your campaign, some DMs will be more lax on the material requirements of it. I remember playing one game. Our sorcerer wanted to restock on their supplies, and some of these material components are very funny. A spell that deals lightning damage. One of the requirements is a burnt branch from a tree that has recently been struck by lightning. And so there was a short little aside as one of the characters goes up into a tree and casts a cantrip, a spell that doesn't have a level, to just zap the tree to then collect the items from it. So it was a very funny moment. And then we started to be like, maybe we'll just get component pouches, which is essentially an item that you can pretend that you're using something out of that. If anyone has watched the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, the sorcerer in that movie has a little fanny pack thing on their side that they can basically flick a wheel and it turns to the spell that they're using and it drops the little component that they need, which is a fun way that was explored in the movie. I just mentioned cantrips. Cantrips are quote-unquote level 0 spells. These are spells that basically cost you nothing to do. You can always cast a small firebolt or create a flame, or the spell we have on the screen here, Prestidigitation. You can always and very easily snuff the light out of a candle magically for dramatic effect. Sometimes you got to be that person to really play up the theatrics. However, as you get more powerful, your ability to cast spells will increase, and the power of those spells will increase. So when you're level 1 and a wizard, a simple spell like Magic Missiles will not deal a whole lot of damage. Then you work your way up to being able to cast Fireball. And with these kind of progressions, you're always able to, you can cast low level spells at a higher level to deal more damage if specified. But you'll have fewer spell slots to cast those spells from. And for a spell slot, think of it as, your Arcana bar or meter in any kind of like video game. Think of it, if anyone's played Dishonored,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You have your mana bar that you fill up with the blue elixirs. There are certain spells where the recovery time will fill you back up to full if you just don't spam your blink, for example. You'll be able to teleport however long you want. Think of that as like a cantrip. It refreshes. But if you're going to slow down time, that's going to cut into your resources, and you will need to refuel that at some point. And that's your character can take long and short rests to nap it off, replenish your health and restore yourself to full. Certain characters get things, abilities or spells back on short rests, which would be like taking 30 minutes of downtime versus long rest, which would be like 8 hours of sleep, that kind of thing. And so spells and certain items are just a really good example of resource management in the game. It's an important skill to manage, of course, but if you're having multiple combat encounters in a day, you might think, oh, I don't want to waste this lightning lure or lightning rod on a bunch of these bandits running around with knives. Let me save it for the evil wizard we're going to find 3 clicks down the road, right? So that it's an important thing to consider, and these are things you kind of pick up and play. And every game is paced a little differently, so maybe you will have some more time between encounters where you're not having to use up all of your spells. If you are playing the healer, you'll often find that your spell slots run out quite quickly because, God bless your party, but you literally have to be the one to God bless your party and heal them when they keep on taking damage. So.
No self-preservation, it's fine.
Yeah. And so, we mentioned Critical Role in Dimension 20. I have included a little link in the story, in the slideshow here that I usually show to my friends. This comes from Critical Role's Calamity miniseries at the Critical Role table, but hosted by Brennan Lee Mulligan, the typical host of Dimension 20. One of the things, with live play shows is accessibility. Critical Role, great storytelling, great effort, really experienced cast. Their episodes can be up to 4 hours apiece, and their seasons run for, into the over 100 episode mark. Whereas Dimension 20 will have, 20 episodes a season, 2 hours apiece. I find that more digestible with my time schedule. But I really loved the Calamity miniseries, where it's a bunch of characters playing at I think 13th or 14th level, so they're very powerful characters. And it's only about 4 episodes, running 4 to 6 hours. So I think it's like 20 hours of content. But one of the lessons from this, and I'll just summarize it. They finished on a note of why they tell stories and the importance of that. And one of the lines they say is, it mattered because they were there and it happened. As silly as a premise this is, I mentioned a bunch of adults sitting around a table, rolling plastic dice, talking about what spells they're casting. What D&D really provides us the ability to do is to have a world with our friends, to tell the kind of story we want, whether it's of hilarious hijinks, of immovable Rod the Bard and his conquests throughout the kingdoms, or more meaningful stories of examining the problems of the world and finding ways to solve them, of sharing in the laughter of our friends. There's so much we can do with D&D, and that's not even getting into all the satanic rituals. So,
Yeah!
for our Kentucky audience, yeah. So I think the most important thing is, and I'm very excited for you all to start playing, go forth, hero, and help, fight for the world, save the world that you want to save, and have so much fun along the way.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
So
I love everything. Just everything I've learned about D&D in the last month. It just brought me such joy. Like,
It really is, it's fabulous, and I think it's so much fun, especially just to try once. Try everything once. A little bit of meth here. Try everything once. A little bit, a session of D&D, just to say you've tried it. And if it's not for you, it's not for you, and it's not for everyone. But I think it's a really great way to let loose, to be a little goofy, be a little silly, but to work together, to spend time with your friends, doing something meaningful, doing something collaborative.
I'm so excited. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be chaos when we start, and I'm excited.
Absolute chaos, and that's why we do everything we do here.
Which is the other reason, though, that we had kind of had the conversation that we're going to start with like a little one shot, that this is how we all meet. We got low fucking stakes, and we figure out how to play games before going into something bigger. But I'm real excited. It gives me the same thrill that like sports gives me. Like,
as someone who's played D&D since middle school, can't relate.
It's just
I take you at your word.
When the example I used was also Ted Lasso. If you watch Ted Lasso, where they just had a scene in the season where they have this moment of fantastic passing, where it's just like beautiful, everyone was in sync, and everybody cheers and freaks out. I get that feeling from like watching rugby and hockey. Watching Fantasy High when Lou needed to roll a nat 20 to not die in one of the last episodes, and then he got it. He rolled the first time and it was a 10. He rolled again with advantage and got the nat 20. Was like the same like screaming elation.
I know, and that's the wonderful thing is, we talk about, like the perfect passes and plays. When the party works together and is able to take down, an evil villain, it's the same feeling. It's working together, playing to your strengths, accounting for each other's weaknesses or blind spots, and pulling it off. Whether it's a heist to steal a magical artifact, or chasing a dragon out of its lair, or finding some villager's lost fishing pole. There's such a wide range of options available, and all these different levels of victories you can claim. But you get to claim them together with your friends, and so I'm very excited for all of you to start playing. I'll be watching with bated breath to see how it goes, and I will be starting a betting market to see how quickly Jordan gets knocked out.
That's fair. I'm so scared.
Thank
you so.
That could be how we finally monetize it. Like, let's get some fucking squares going. All right, let's get a bookie. I don't know exactly what a bookie does. Like, I'm not that much of a gambler, but like, we got to get a bookie. With like, boom.
I think they just have to be literate, right? I also am not that much of a gambler, but there's going to be a lot of rolling of the dice here, so.
Hey.
And gambling specifically with Jordan's life, so.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us and taking us through this. This was super helpful, and I think it's super helpful for anybody like me who gets into this and Googles, how do you get started with Dungeons & Dragons?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us. To everybody out there, you can follow Corey on Twitter. Which handle on Twitter? Promote yourself.
Let me promote myself. Let me do a little self-promotion. My handle is @CoreyWFrate.
That's what I thought it was, and then I panicked that wasn't right before I said it.
I forget my middle name all the time, but that's okay. So yes, mostly politics, but I will happily tweet about nerdy stuff like D&D as well. My passion. So yeah, exactly.
You can follow all of us on Twitter, follow us Share Screens on Twitter, see our VOD where we created all of our characters on our YouTube channel. Stick around for new rollers up until the campaign starts in the fall. We'll be dropping a new video with a different expert or DM talking about the game, why they love it, why we love it, and how we are getting all into it. With that, I didn't come up with a cute sign-off for this, but thanks for joining.
We'll see you in the stars.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.